to a show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Off the Man's Podcast. And it's me. You know it's me. It's Dante. It's always going to be Dante because, well, it's my show. And this week, my guest. So I follow this person on Instagram because most of my guests come from Instagram, as you all know. And, you know, a repost here and there because she has a lot of funny content. And just as I live vicariously through her posts and her stories, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm cool too. We got to talking because she put up, I feel like, a very important post about realistic expectations of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and self-defense in general. So, you know, got to talking and was like, hey, come on, let's talk more about that. Let's just talk in general. So this week's guest, I want to welcome architect, recording artist, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu purple belt, and overall badass, Sav Wright. Welcome to the show. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great, and I'm so excited to be able to talk to you a little bit further. I know we've had some pretty good conversations in DMs about a variety of different topics, and I view you as someone who's been incredibly supportive of not only my content, but just all of my values in general. So I'm definitely very excited to dive a little bit deeper into that and share some thoughts.
I appreciate, you know, the kind words going my way. Thank you. That makes me feel like, oh, you know what, people do care. So the post that, you know, I'm referencing is you shared it on your Instagram where you're talking about, again, like kind of realistic expectations when it comes to self-defense and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So if you don't mind, you know, sharing, I guess, here for the listeners, you know, just kind of, you know, what you explained there.
Yeah, I'll give a little bit of a recap, a spark notes, if you will. I had a girl reach out to me who is now training at our gym, and at the time, she was asking about, you know, like, is there anything from a woman's perspective that I need to know or that it would be really helpful to know prior to starting jiu-jitsu? And I feel like that was a question I had also asked at one point, and people had given me the answers that you hear all the time, or gym etiquette, or, you know, the ins and outs of the actual sport. But I wish that someone had been a little bit more clear with me about the expectations and the self-defense portion of it. And so what I told her was that jiu-jitsu has not necessarily taught me how to like fight people in real life situations, but rather to like know when not to fight. And so in my video, I dove a little bit into that explanation and what that means, because people will hear that and be like, well, learning a martial art is, you know, the point of that is to learn how to fight. And in so many regards, yes. But something happens when you do jujitsu or close combat sport for a while where you start to pick up on other things besides fighting, and those things become a little bit more important when it comes to self-defense situations. And these are things like being able to gauge somebody's strength or weight just by looking at them, and getting in like close physical proximity with someone, knowing when there are signs of aggression, or, I mean, we call them like spazzy white belts, but like when there's an ego involved, particularly with new men that start the sport. And you start to be able to gauge all of these things just by looking at a person, interacting with a person. And those tools become really helpful in more life-threatening situations, because when you have those tools, you're going in with pre-existing knowledge of, is this person going to be aggressive? Are they larger than me? Are they stronger than me? Is it safe for me to try to fight against them? Or is it smarter to just take what I need to and leave in one piece? I have no idea how aggressive people are. And there were many scenarios as well where those were the tools that I was using over my 7 years of jiu-jitsu training, or my, you know, 16 years of comprehensive martial arts training. I have opted in many situations to not fight back. So that was the basis of my video, is particularly from a woman's perspective, what has jiu-jitsu taught me? And it has taught me when to be smart, make the right choices that are strategic for my safety, and to not fight back at certain times.
In with the video, so I reshared it into my story. So it's kind of a you know abbreviated clip there, more so to kind of let people know, because I feel like the way that you open the clip, it brings you in. It wants it makes people want to know more, basically. So when I reposted it to the stories, I was like, hopefully people pick up on this and go go listen to the rest of it. Did you get any pushback in the comments from people, specifically guys? Because I know guys are really more so on social media. Dudes are like, oh, well.
Yeah, the men are the most vocal for sure. But I know 90% of them wouldn't say anything to my face. And that goes for all of my content, like not just the video that I posted, but it's borderline concerning the amount of men that like comment really mean misogynistic things in my comments all the time. I would say that particular video, I didn't get a ton of pushback. I think the people who were in my DMs or responding that weren't like in 100% agreement came at it with like a very level-headed approach and be like, well, did you factor X, Y, and Z? Or like they pose it as more of a question. And so I appreciated that. I know it was like there was some sensitive topics within that video. And a lot of it was just like, oh, I relate to this, or like, this is really great information. And it was primarily women that were responding and being like, this is spot on. That's what I've learned from martial arts. Or it's women who are thinking about getting into the sport being like, wow, this is really good to know. But I would say overall that video in particular didn't get a ton of pushback. There have been other videos that have.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, because I have it set in my queue to put on my main feed upcoming. And I know whenever I repost anyone else's content, one thing I do is I go, look, let's see what the comments are on their side first, so I can know what to prepare for. But also know on my side, what's going to happen is there's a lot of people that are going to, come in and, make these goofy comments where it's like, it is a little alarming sometimes, especially whenever I put up female content, especially, I'll get guys that'll say things and it's like, most times I don't reply. A lot of times, depending on how aggressive the comment is, I'll just block them and move on with life. But there's some comments that come out and I'll reply like, dude, you sound like you might have a problem that we might have to report. Yeah. Like, chill, dude.
Yeah. And I think too, people, not just men, this goes for any topic, but in this scenario, men have a hard time not overgeneralizing the situations and things that they don't have as much knowledge about or can't understand on a personal level. And with, sexual assault or like literally any violent scenario or anything that poses a threat to a woman's safety, that is one area where like you can't overgeneralize it, but men do it because very rarely are they the ones in that situation. So from an outside perspective, it looks as though like, well, why would you get yourself in that situation in the first place? Or the standard, like, what were you wearing? They make like very generalized assumptions about the ability to handle and be like completely cognizant in a life-threatening situation. And it's just not that simple. And so I think if anything, when this video gets posted, there might be a lot of like overgeneralizing in the comments from men, or being like, well, just don't get yourself in those situations, or stop wearing crop tops, or like literally, it's like very general comments where I'm like, I feel fine for the most part because I have extensive knowledge to be able to fight someone if I really absolutely need to. I wear whatever I want. I go wherever I want. 99% of the time I feel safe because I'm like, worst case scenario, I do what I got to do. And in every other life-threatening situation I've been in, I have got myself out of there in one piece and safe, regardless of what I have to sacrifice or not sacrifice. And so I feel confident in my ability to handle those situations, but not everybody else does. And so it's not as simple as like, well, just don't get yourself there, or, just fight back. Or like, if you know how to punch someone, throw a punch. Like, who am I punching? What are his motives? It's like, there's so many more factors in that men really don't relate to on a personal level for the most part. And I think that's where a lot of those comments come from. So I don't really let them get to me, but also like, I dare you to say it to my face. Come on.
Yeah, that's always my thing. Is like, yeah, you're saying this on the internet, but like if we're in person, I think the conversation is a lot different.
Yeah.
Also, my favorite one that I always hear is, well, this wouldn't be a problem if you carried a gun on you. It's like, and I'm not trying to make this a Second Amendment conversation or a gun conversation. I don't care about guns. If people want to have guns, have all the guns you want. If you
Yeah.
like it, have a blast. No pun intended there, but I don't want a gun. Like
We have
I'm not
bigger fish to fry.
responsible.
The comment about like,
Exactly.
"Well, you carry a gun," like you can't slap the band-aid on the fact that men are the problem.
Yeah.
Like scenarios of like every single situation I've been in with a man who is posing a threat to my safety, like a gun would have not fixed anything. Hate to break it
Yeah.
to you. So no, I just think it's funny because it's very much like slap a band-aid on it and let's not address the deeper issue.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's like you said, overgeneralizing.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this would be the thing that's going to fix everything, and it's like, well, it it could fix one thing, but then there are other problems that come with that. So you can't just say do this. I know for me, when I talk to my friends about jujitsu and self defense, and you know all things combat sport related, I do point out the fact, like one of the things you said is it tells jujitsu teaches you when to fight back, when not to, and ultimately I always tell people your best self defense is getting the hell out of there. If you have the opportunity to run, run.
Mhm.
Only fight when you absolutely positively have no other choice but to fight. Uh, my daughter, who is 7, she's not training yet. I know people have given me a hard time. They're like, "You need to get her in as soon as possible." It's like it'll be fine. It's fine. Relax. Like breathe. We have a child in our neighborhood who she's really good friends with, and the relationship has gotten so much better. But early on, that child had a little bit of a problem with their hands, and my daughter's such a sweet soul. She's like, she came home and she didn't want to tell us what happened. The little girl hit her, and then it turns out it was accidental the first time. Now the second time, not so much. And I was talking to my wife about it, and I was like, well, look, one of my concerns with our daughter knowing how to defend herself against this specific child is I think this child wants someone to hit her back or to fight her back, because that gives her now free reign to just unload. And that's where the concept of knowing when to fight it is important, because there's some people you just don't want to fuck with, and there are others where it's like you don't necessarily have to fight them as much as it's more so just kind of controlling the situation, whether it be body positioning or if you have to get into a scuffle and contain them. But people who don't train always have this idea in their head of like, oh well, martial arts, and then they start doing the hand motions. It's like you'll defend us. It's like, no, I'm going to get us out of there. What the fuck is like,
Yeah.
no.
No, that's a great point because there are. I feel like there's an idea that like if you, especially if you're in combat sports of some sort and you back away from a fight or you don't want to fight someone or you choose the non-violence route, that you're not legit or like you're a fake fighter or whatever it is. And I've gotten that plenty of times, the whole like a fake fighter, like there's nothing fake about what I do except for the fact that I don't do the sport so that I can fight people. I think that's the huge difference is people that are dedicated to the sport as a lifestyle, and for the competition aspect of it will never choose to do that in real life unless absolutely necessary. But I wish that there wasn't such a like, oh, you're kind of a pussy, like tied to the, if you choose not to fight. And the whole strategic decision making that comes along with jujitsu, the way that I approach jujitsu as a sport in general, and the way that I was able to learn and digest the material that I'm taught is by looking at it as like a dichotomous key. So when you start a jujitsu match, you're both standing. From there, someone's you either pull guard or you shoot a takedown. And those are your two options. And if you go this route and you shoot a takedown, well, then what do? You start passing or you're already passed and then you move forward into. So it becomes this whole dichotomous key of options. Once I started doing jujitsu and understanding it as a dichotomous key, my decision making in real life, like outside of jujitsu, like that, like rapid decisions, strategic, like I can make really quick choices when I need to, especially in life threatening situations. Like the ability to think quickly and be able to like see the image in your head and say, like, I have this option or this option. What am I going to do? And then where do I go from there? And so that strategic decision making has been applied to the rest of my life, not just jujitsu. But I wish that people also approached the dichotomous key learning thing to jujitsu. And I think if I ever have a school, which I would like to really like enforce that, because it's something that helped me really digest my strategic decision making.
Well, I oftentimes think about, for me, when it comes to jiu-jitsu, when I started training, especially when I start 2015, that seems like the right year. Yeah, 2015. And everything I did outside of jiu-jitsu, no matter what I did, all my decisions kind of connected back to what I was doing on the mat, what I learned on the mat, how to approach things, how to evaluate things, and just break things down. I used to be, just headstrong and just like run into situations like, yeah, like I'm here. After starting jiu-jitsu, I had to really kind of break down, you know, why would I do this? Like, not just why, but then like, what's the next step to it? What's the consequence if
Yep.
this doesn't work, or what's the payoff if it works? And then where do we go from there? So there's just all these different steps, and I definitely credit that to jiu-jitsu, for me at least. And I'm sure, like, that can be applied for many other things, but directly with jiu-jitsu is like, okay, because in jiu-jitsu, hey, if I go for a submission and it's risky and I miss, oh, I'm fucked. And that's how I look at things. And I was like, hey, let's go over here. Let's go do this. You guys want to play basketball? Okay, let's play basketball. Then I got to think, well, if I play basketball, now I got a bad knee. And if I cut this way, I'm going to hit the ground. And let's not do basketball. So.
Yeah, that's what my coach enforces as like low risk, high percentage. And technique wise, that's what we focus on at our school. But also, I find myself now using that terminology just in life in general. I'm like, well, is it low risk, high percentage? Like, is my return really high? And like, what do I have to give to get that? And I think that's that low risk, high percentage terminology. I think that can be applicable to everything. But yeah, it's crazy the amount of stuff that carries over from jujitsu into the other areas of my life. And unfortunately, like I haven't picked anything to do in my life that I don't have to do at 110%. All of the things that I've chosen are like very intense. Because I get bored easily. I go kind of stir crazy if I don't have a lot to do. So my schedule is packed, but they're packed with all the right things and all the things that have me like as balanced of a human being as I can be. But I do find that jujitsu is sort of like this centripetal force that merges into the other areas of my life where I'm like, okay, well, I did the wrong thing, but like I do the wrong thing all the time and I still recover and my defense is great. And I can, it's like, especially when you add competition into jujitsu, it teaches you a whole different mindset of like, I mean, I'm so hard on myself, and there are days when I really don't want to go to jujitsu, or I have like a terrible practice and hate myself and like beat myself up, or competitions that I lose, and it's like I am so hard on myself. But at the end of the day, there has not been one competition or match or fight that I have done where I have not made it through and like given my best, even on the days when I was sick or injured or whatever. Like there's just a mentality that carries throughout everything. And I think that this is something that I had said so long ago, and I remember actually posting about it on social media, but it was closer to like when I had made the transition from MMA into more like competitive jiu-jitsu. But basically I had said something along the lines of like, I think everyone should get punched in the face like at least once, or just like be unloaded on in a corner, something happens. I don't know, but I still remember the first time that I was like really in a round in practice where people had started unloading on me. Like I was getting better and started sparring with the guys, the AMI and the pro fighters. And there was one guy who just unloaded on me. And after that point, I was like, no one can tell me shit. Like I just ate this dude's punches for 5 minutes straight. Like I'm gonna be fine. No matter what life throws at me, nothing will feel as bad as getting punched in the face 27 times by this guy. And so I just think there's something that like the tenacity and the perseverance that forms from being cornered and being hit or being choked out or like whatever it is. Like you are pushed to your breaking point repetitively. Every time that you decide that you want to be a competitive fighter, you are pushed to your limits every single time, and every single time you come out the other side for the most part. you know.
Well, I think, that's super important though to understand. And, that's something I always explained with jujitsu to my friends, or I try to explain it. None of them want to train. So it's like they're not going to fully understand, the ideal that you're pushed to your limits. The question is, what do you do in those situations? How do you respond? Because that's once I started training and really getting into it and figuring out like how to actually embrace jujitsu, you know, every time my best friend, she she'll come through like, oh, I'm dating this guy. And it's like, oh, cool. Hey, like, go find me a patch of grass, bring him over. you know, and I remember one of the guys, like he he was just super uncomfortable. So he like that. He didn't stick around. I felt bad. I told him, I was like, dude, I'm so sorry. Like we didn't actually grapple or anything, but I kept kind of messing with him. And I'm relatively introverted and shy, but for some reason that dude, I was like, come on, dude, like what do you like? Let's try it. Try it. It'll be fun, dude. Come on. And then even she came over and started grappling with me. I was like, dude, come on, dude, it'll be fine. And I think he was probably thinking like, this broad is a lunatic who she
Yeah.
introduced me to. But for me, like in those situations, you learn a lot about a person when you're, my neighbor actually came and did a trial class with me once, and he was in the army. So, we always talk about it. And he's like, yeah, I want to come through and try it. And just mop the floor with them. But it's because he didn't know the things that I knew. So those like little details. But he fought back. And that's what I'm always looking for. Is like, what are you going to do when you're in a bad position? If you're mounted, are you going to just tap because of the claustrophobia? Are you
Yeah.
going to try to fight out? And I think that's an important thing for people to understand about themselves is like you said, if you're cornered and you're getting like worked on, it's just like there's no escape. How do
Yeah.
you respond to that? Do you come out of that and you say, okay, not letting that happen again? Or do you say, maybe this isn't for me?
Yeah,
So,
I think I usually in those specific situations, particularly in training or like during fight camps and stuff, and even when I visit other gyms, I have usually three responses. One is I get angry, but not like angry like aggressive, mean, spazzy, angry like motivated to not be as bad. Or like if someone is rolling a little too hard with me, my aggression picks up. Mind you, I have the technical ability to be aggressive and still be technical. It's usually less aggression and more just like picking up the speed or like being faster with submission attacks and things like that. And so me and my coach, April Parks, we talk about this all the time because she is a multiple time world champion. First degree black belt, like amazing, right? Like just amazing at this. Everywhere that she goes to teach seminars, she visits other gyms. She stays in roles with people, but she's constantly trying to be killed by men with fragile egos. Blue belts, purple belts will just like unload on her. And I get the same thing. But especially when you visit other gyms where they don't get to roll with you regularly and see like what you're actually capable of, she doesn't want to go to all of these gyms and have to go 3,000% every time she rolls with people. Like she would like to just get good rounds and not have to worry about some purple belt coming up and being like, well, I beat April Parks and she's a black belt, so I'm better. I'm a black belt. Like it's just like it's so frustrating because that aggression kicks up, like the response of the aggression. Like, we don't want to have to be aggressive. I promise you, if I'm going 100%, I will beat you. If you're a man and you have been training less than 6 years, I will beat you. I don't want to go 100% all the time. It's not healthy for me. When that happens, that's when the aggression switches on, and that's my response to someone going a little bit too heavy with me. Number 2 is that I just like feel dead. I just feel dead, and I'm like, you know what? My body's not in it. My brain's not in it. I'm going home. I'm taking a day off. Number 3, I just cry. Sometimes when I'm training, especially if it's like a fight camp or I am just like being beaten up or I'm being forced to do, 8-minute rounds or whatever, like I get so physically exhausted that I go to the sidelines, I cry for like 30 seconds, get it out, and then I go right back to it. And sometimes that's the response that I need. And basically what I'm getting at is all 3 of these responses are necessary for different situations. Typically it's the aggression one that comes out, but occasionally the other 2 will happen, and that's fine. And I think all 3 reactions are completely necessary. I went to a gym with my coach she was like teaching a seminar or whatever. And there was a guy who I think white belt, blue belt, something, probably like 6'2", maybe like 100, like probably 200 pounds, right? I'm gonna give him a little size. He's a big guy. And he called me out during open mat, and he was like, "Come on, purple belt, let's see what you got." Right? And immediately I'm like, "Watch your mouth." And so I was like, "Okay, all right." So I rolled this guy thinking like, okay, he's just joking around, maybe he's chill, whatever. This guy is fighting for his life. Like every single ounce of energy, strength, this guy is just going. Like, oh God, like I'm gonna have to do 6 minutes of this. Like, I don't want to do 6 minutes of this. So anyway, like that is when the aggression kicked on for me. It was no longer a fun roll. It was not like a nice, chill, fun roll. Let's get work in. I'm visiting. It was like this man was clearly trying to be aggressive and assert dominance over somebody who is more tactical and more skilled than him. So I submitted him. And then he got angry. So I did it again. And then he got angrier. And then he, this thing happens all the time. We're like, we start here and a guy will take a jump here. And I'm like, okay. And then he'll get upset because I meet him here. And he'll jump up. And it's just like this constant, right? And I'm like, if you pick it up, I'm going to pick it up. And you don't want me to pick it up. Right? Like, I don't want to have to pick it up, but I will pick it up. And so he got really angry and he picked me up. I had my guard closed, and he picked me up and he slammed me on the mat. And I called him out in front of the entire gym. I was like, why are you slamming me? You are 3 times my size. Control yourself. And he said, sorry. Right? And at this point, like, everyone was like, what's going on? Like, I was pissed. I was so mad. So then he was just like aggressive. But even after that, like, he didn't stop. So I just, I took his back, I choked him out, and then I got up and I said, I'm done, thank you. And I left. And that leads me into the other thing that I had to learn. I had to like literally relearn how to say no to rolls. When I was a white belt, it was really easy to be like, no, like I don't feel comfortable rolling, whatever. Like I just don't feel experienced enough or comfortable enough. And then now that I am further along, there's an expectation that like I should be willing to roll with everyone. And I'm sorry, but I don't feel bad saying no now. I say no all the time, even to the guys at my own gym, the big guys. They're like, you want to roll? I'm like, no, I don't, because it's counterproductive. After a certain point, if you are over 180 pounds, it is counterproductive for me to roll with you, especially when all you do is sit on me for 5 minutes. So I'm a little bit more strategic now about who I roll with. And again, it goes back to the sort of sixth sense that comes with jiu-jitsu. Like I can look at you, I can know by the size of your calves, I can know, I can know what you weigh, how strong you are. If you were a wrestler, like if you're 180 pounds and you were a D1 college wrestler, I'm not rolling with you. And if I am, I'm pulling guard the whole time, So just like gauging what's safe and what's not, and not feeling bad for saying no. I'm 140 pounds. If your intention is to not be technical with me, to sit on me, or to throw me around and injure me, I'm not doing it because it's not smart. And I don't feel bad. So that's my spiel on that.
I oftentimes wonder when it comes to anyone that rolls that way, it's like, okay, you're a bigger guy, you're going to roll with a female. It's like, if you're not rolling to test your technique and help improve their technique, or help in some capacity, or, try to improve your own technique with them, then what are you really there for? Are you there just to feed your ego?
Yeah.
Because it's like, again, leave your ego at the door.
Yeah.
That's, what we always say. And again, you get people who come in and it's just they don't know how to do that. And I've had friends in the past who, they refuse to roll with females, you know, for whatever reason. They would never say why they refuse to roll with females. And one guy specifically, I went to his gym years ago when I was just starting, just kind of as a trial class at his gym. And there's all guys. There was one female there, and I roll with her. And this is me, maybe day two. And I had nothing for her. I was like, I'm like, well, I know I'm stronger than you, but I know it's piss poor etiquette to come in as a new guy, especially, and just pick her up and throw her across the gym. Like, yeah, that was easy.
Yeah.
Bring on the next one. But I talked to him afterwards, like, the one lady in there, she kicked the shit out of me. And he's like, he goes, just without missing me, I don't roll with women. And I had two theories to that, but after really kind of getting to know his personality later on, I think theory number two is the correct one. The first theory was, he was dating a good friend of mine, and my thought was, oh, maybe he's like that kind of guy. It's like, I don't want to roll with a female just because I don't want this to get awkward, and I feel like I'm doing something
Only
wrong.
awkward when you make it awkward. It's literally only
So,
awkward when you make it awkward.
So
Like,
and this is, Dante in the beginning. That's because I don't know at that time. So like, I don't know, maybe that could be awkward. It wasn't awkward for me rolling with her because, again, I was fighting for my life.
yeah,
Like, there was nothing awkward there at all.
yeah,
It was like, please, lady, I'm just here to see what this is like. You're scaring me. And then the other thought that I had for, why he wouldn't roll with women is, ego. It's like, well, if she beats me, I don't want to look bad getting beat by a girl,
what's
or
usually is.
I don't know. But after really kind of hanging out with him a whole lot more and talking, it's like, okay, it's the ego part. That's what it really is. He doesn't want to roll with the woman himself personally because he knows he out muscles her. And he's like, well, shit goes left, I'm going to the detonation button. I'm using all the strength. But I can't prove that that's what it really is, but I'm leaning heavier towards that. But at my gym, everyone rolls with everyone. There ain't no one that's like, I'm not rolling with any females.
Yeah.
It's like everyone's the same. It's like, look, if you sign that waiver and you're on these mats, like, we can go. So and even for myself, it's like my coach used to have me roll with my main training partner was a smaller female, and he had us roll all the time, and we kind of like grew up together, like learning off each other, like working our technique. And eventually it became a detriment for her, though, because as she was competing, I'm not moving like the females that she's going to compete against. I'm moving like a old 40-year-old dude with a bad hip. It's like, okay, I can do only so much. Oh, you want like, a scramble here into this position? The best I can give you is half guard.
Yeah.
Like, sorry.
Yeah, that's a lot. My coach, April and G. So April and G are together. They've been together for a while, and they opened their school together. And G is very good at, because he doesn't compete as much as April does. Actually, he just competed for the first time at black belt. But April is high level competitor. And so for both April and I, he's very good at being like, what do you need today? Like, am I a 145-pound purple belt, or am I, a 145-pound black belt? What am I, right? And he'll roll like that. And he's very good at adapting and adjusting for April and I. And I wish that that was a skill that more people had, because it is getting to that point now where, like, not only are we women that you train with, but we are competitive women that you train with. First of all, don't injure us. Second of all, we need to have training partners that best mimic who we're going to be facing when we actually compete. And training under April has been life-changing, just to have her insight. Her and I are pretty much the same size, and she's got many, many years of training on me. And, but it's an honor to be kicked around by somebody who is so good and so talented. And I've learned more from her and G in 6 months related to jiu-jitsu than, any other place I've been in my life. I started with Jake Bone in Rochester. I grew up in Rochester, and I still, that's my home family. That's my home team. And he definitely did more of I view him as more of like my striking or MMA coach. And I was like very MMA focused with him there. And then I moved to Syracuse for school, and I've been here ever since, and dabbled in a few other gyms, but essentially ended up here. And I feel like this is my jiu-jitsu spot. So I still visit back at home, and like I still train with the boys. They'll always be like the OG boys. That's our group. We all kind of like came up together, and I love them to death. It's just hard because I wish I could have all of my training partners in one place. But yeah, I think, it's really important to find training partners that most mimic your competition. And it's getting harder to do the higher up that you get, especially like as a woman, and being able to like be with April is so essential for me. It's been so helpful.
So, as you've mentioned, your background in MMA, your history in MMA, could you kind of go over, I guess, what got you started? Like, why did you start? What moved you from MMA to jiu-jitsu?
I'll give you my whole life story. So when I was 3, my mom forced my sister and I into Tatsudo. It's like something close to Taekwondo. It's a kind of like a mix of a bunch of different styles. And we had a local dojo, and so I started when I was 3, and it was like Olympic style sparring when I started competing. And I did that up until I was like 13 or 14. My mom got her black belt. I am actually the only girl in my family. It's not a Tatsudo black belt. I quit at brown belt because I got bored. So I was like, Mom, I'm bored. And at the same time, Jake Bone had just started teaching out of that same dojo because he was local or whatever, and he used the space, and he had his really small classes, and he just did like boxing and kickboxing. And he was at the time coming up as an MMA fighter. And I remember seeing him teaching a class after we had practice or whatever, and Jake went in there, and they were striking, and I was like, Mom, I want to do that. Like, that looks so cool, right? Like actually hitting stuff and like throwing kicks, whatever. And so next thing I know, I started training with Bone. I was like 14. And for a while, like he was like just like a big brother. Like it was really cool. There were like a couple other, older guys. And then there were a couple kids that were my age too. And those ended up being the boys that I kind of came up with. And we were just like a wolf pack. I don't know. It was really fun. And I did the boxing, kickboxing up till I was like 17. And then they had MMA classes going on, and I watched all the boys that I knew, and they were doing MMA, and Bone was like, you should try MMA, why not? And I was like, well, I don't know what it is. I just know how to punch and kick. And so I tried it, and I started it, and I was like, wow, my ground game is shit. Like I have no wrestling, I have no jiu-jitsu. And so I started to put a little more focus on that. And so I definitely started taking jiu-jitsu a little more seriously and started competing when I was like 18, I think. Yeah, 18 was my first jiu-jitsu competition ever. And it was to prepare me for my MMA debut. So at that point, I was pretty heavy into MMA, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to make my debut. I'll, fight amateur or whatever. And I had a very different set of plans at that time. And all the boys were making their amateur debuts. And so I was like, yeah, I'm hanging right with the boys, and I'm going to do that. And so I'll compete a little bit in jiu-jitsu, get rid of the nerves, just get into the competition scene in general. And I ended up just never leaving. Like I did a jiu-jitsu competition. I kind of fell in love with it. And I was like, this fills my competition void. I can still train MMA. I could still work my striking and just compete for jiu-jitsu. And so as time progressed, I would say I just shifted focus a little bit. My striking is still very good. My MMA is still pretty good. But my jiu-jitsu has far surpassed that. And I remember it's just like weird to see the stark contrast of like at one point my jiu-jitsu was so bad to the point where I was like, I cannot make an MMA debut on this jiu-jitsu, so now looking back and like that's crazy, because now I'm actually even better at jiu-jitsu than I am striking, and like I'm a pretty good striker. So I would say the pivotal point was like 2019, like right before COVID hit was when I started to take it really seriously. And I trained over COVID, not as much as I would have liked to, but I did train. And then when I got my purple belt, I just like pedal to the metal competition. I competed left and right, got as many matches as I could, just to try to like ease the nerves a little bit, because I knew that competing was something I wanted to do regularly, but I do get really nervous before I compete. And so I was like, I'm just gonna work on the performance anxiety thing. I'd say it's a little better now, like I'm a little more confident with myself, but I still do get nervous. And the better that I got and the more that I competed, the harder it became to find matches, especially local to me. So I started having to travel, and I started having to take matches against brown and black belts. And that's kind of still where I'm at. It's really difficult to find tournaments or matches, even super fights. Like super fights are a little bit easier, which is why I've been, I took a super fight at purple against Maya Yankello. And that was good. It was, pretty fair. But I am running into that same issue where it's like the matches I have to take, or the matches I'm being offered, are against brown and black belts. Speaking of which, I'm headlining Blood Diamond submission on July 15th in Virginia against John Wood. So that's my upcoming, and that's a super fight. She thinks she's like a 4 straight brown belt. But, the way I see it is like, regardless of who I'm competing against, and this has been true at any level, if you put me against somebody that is more experienced than I am, weighs more than me, like it doesn't mean I'm going to try any less. The odds might not necessarily be in my favor, but there's no harm that can come from going against someone with more experience. And, I fought Alex Enriquez. That was crazy. Alex is like insane. And I stood up with Alex Enriquez for 2.5 minutes. And to me, like that was a victory. At the time I was like still kind of a fresher purple belt. And I was like, you know what, go me. I'm taking the matches that nobody else wants to take. I don't care if I'm a purple belt. Eventually I'm going to be caught up or where they are now. And I'm going to be able to take those same matches, or vice versa. I'm going to be taking them against somebody else. So I don't really care. I don't really care about losing. Your record and who you lose to, I think, is more detrimental to you and your mentality than it will be to anyone that's viewing you from the outside. I can separate myself from my emotional state and say, like, from an outside perspective, like, the fact that she even got up as a fresh purple belt and went and fought Alex Enriquez, like, that's enough props in and of itself. I give myself props for that. From an emotional state, I'm like, damn, I'm sick of losing, But also, like, the people that I'm losing to, I'm surviving with, I am making it the full round time with, I'm going to overtime with. So I'm still giving just as much effort, and I'm still showing what I need to show. And eventually someday I'm going to be exactly where they are, and I'm going to be, it's going to be way closer. So I don't really think that there's anything bad that can come from taking those matches. But yeah, so that's a little bit of how I got into martial arts. I dabbled in a few different gyms, as I mentioned, and Bone is sort of like my home gym. That's my origin story. But I had to, once I came to Syracuse, I had to find a gym to train at while I was at school. And the first gym that I went to was so incredibly toxic. I was actually glad that COVID hit because it was an excuse to cancel my membership. There, like, there were so many red flags. They wouldn't let you cross train. Like, you could only train at that gym. You were locked into a 12-month contract at a ridiculous price. I wasn't allowed to do takedowns or wrestling. You could only start sitting. It was really weird. They would separate, like, for all of the drills and situationals, they would separate the men and women. So, like, I could only drill with the women. And there were no competitive notable fighters coming out of their gym. They had one guy that was like many, many years ago, but there are no like really comparable, reputable fighters coming out of the gym. And that was like a red flag to me. And I was like, if I seriously want to compete and I want to be good at this, like, where am I going to go? Because there really weren't that many options at the time. Then another gym opened up, and I had like a mutual who was opening the gym, and I was like, okay, I'll go there because he was like relatively high level competitor, and I was like, this will be much better. It was for a while till it wasn't, and then April and G opened their school, and I was like, April Parks is where I need to go because April has everything that I want, and the best way to get to where you want to be is to look at what somebody else has and go get it and ask them how they got it and follow along and watch what they do and listen to them. And that's what I've been doing, and I really do think that April and G are going to take me exactly where I need to go. And I don't even know where that is yet, but we're going.
Well, there's that trust. It's
Yeah.
like it feels right. You trust
Yeah,
it.
I trust them.
Just go.
I do. Yeah. And I can't
Good.
necessarily say that about every other coach I've had. Like Bone, G, and April, I trust them. They're good people.
That's a good thing, and I think that is an extremely important thing. You know, you get a lot of people, like you said, the one gym was extremely toxic. Big red flag is, you can't cross train. It's like, and I don't know. That's a weird thing to me when it's like, well, no, you can't go out and learn with someone else. I think it's even stranger. It's like you can't cross train and you don't have any competitors coming out
Yeah.
of there. It's like
No
what are you
competitors,
hiding?
no cross training. I'm like, I'm not even like, you're not even my home gym. My home gym's in Rochester, and you know him. Like, they knew Bone too. And they were like, you can't cross train. I'm like, well, I'm technically cross training with you because I belong to them, like that's who I identify with. So I just thought the whole thing was so weird. And like, why, and you would think if you are a gym owner and you have someone who comes to you and says, like, I want to be a competitor, I want to take things seriously, and, I want to, maybe represent you, whatever. I would give them the resources to be able to do that. But like, I wasn't allowed to, like, very weird rules. Like, I wasn't allowed to hit the bags before practice. I wasn't allowed in the other room if there was no teacher in there. Like, I wasn't allowed to put in extra work on the side. Like, it was just weird. And so I dipped out of there, and I was like, gotta go. Right. And if I had stayed there, like, and at the time I remember just like being so concerned, and I was like, where am I going to go? Like, what am I going to do? Honestly, training in my basement would have been better than that. But at the time I was just so concerned. And this has happened so many times throughout my life with other things with jiu-jitsu. I'm just being so afraid to like leave where I'm at in the current position for the fear of like not having the security of my current schedule and the current comfort of people that I know and training partners, and having to go outside and like re-meet new people, new coaches, new environments. And at every gym that I have been at, I have had this sort of like fear of leaving, where I'm like, what if I leave and it's like not as good, or like, what if I'm not going to be able to find any better? And like, me wanting to leave is my sign from the universe that like it's time to go. If it wasn't time to go, I wouldn't want to leave. And I can see that so clearly now that I am in a good place and I'm with good people and good coaches, and I feel at home. Like, I would never in a million years want to leave. Like, I am living in Syracuse so that I can stay and keep training with these people. And that's not a feeling that I had felt since training full-time at home with Bone. And I just think that was, I don't know. I just look back and I'm like, I wish for every time that I was scared of leaving, I had understood that it was just the door opening for me to find something else. And like, you will find better, and just to not be so scared of it. But yeah, the change at the time was really scary. Yeah.
Well, I think too, it's like you feel good where you're at. You don't have that urge to like just escape. You know, I think it's a clear sign, you're at home.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there was a point where I wasn't thinking like, oh, I don't like my gym. I love my gym, but I think there was a point where I felt like my schedule and their schedule wasn't jiving. I was like, I need to go somewhere where there's a schedule that's going to work for me. And I looked around a couple places, and nice folks out there, but and I know I'm biased because it's my gym, but it's like, look, man, I think here in Maryland, we've got you know some of the best competitors, best coaches, like best atmosphere and culture, and it's like, why would I leave this? Like, like this, these are my people. But there's also that thought sometimes I'm like, it's like I'm Ariel in the Little Mermaid. It's like, I want to, you know, go over there. I want to see what's going
Yeah.
on over there. Then you realize, like, maybe I don't really want legs. Maybe
Yeah.
I need to go back in the ocean and be,
Yeah.
with my folks.
Yeah. I mean, there's sort of like two sides to that coin. One is like you leave and you're like, man, I really wish that I could have seen how awesome I had it before. And like, you got to leave in order to know that you want to go back home. Or there is the, you got to leave to figure out that you don't want to go back home, and both ways, like you're going to have to venture out. I love like the relationships that I've made with other fighters and people in the community through social media and just through mutual friends or visiting gyms. And everywhere I travel, I try to stop into a gym. And sometimes I'll even take trips just so I can go visit a gym. And I think it's important because you get to have little glimpses into other people's lives and like other people's gym environments. And even though I do that, I still want to come home. And even when I find really cool gyms, and that's the mentality of April and G, is really like, you can go other places because we're not concerned that you're going to leave. Like we have such a solid, good foundation here at our gym and such a great atmosphere that we're not worried that you're going to leave. Like you can go wherever you want. So I enjoy the fact that I can still dabble in my friends' gyms or go visit here and there and be able to like get those exploration jitters out and like be able to go venture into the world. But I don't need to do it permanently. I don't need to make a permanent switch, and I can go visit people and absorb other people's lives while still being able to like feel confident in coming home and being like, yes, these are my people. This is where I'm at. And not every day is going to be a good day. Not every day of training is a good day, but every single day of the support and the community at my gym is a good day. Even when I don't feel good about myself, even when I'm frustrated at the way that I'm performing, or I'm not grasping things as quickly, or I'm cutting weight, or like literally whatever might be going wrong, it's never a reflection of the gym environment. It's never a reflection of the people there. It's just the ebbing and flowing natural cycle of like being an athlete and performance. But if you can find that like consistent environment with good positive people, that will be there even on the days when your jujitsu is rough.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. Like, I always feel like, no matter what, if you go here, you go there,
Yeah.
you always have a place to come back to. You're always going to be welcome, and it's never going to feel weird
Yeah.
coming back.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. I think it's beautiful.
It is.
Um, so one other thing I wanted to kind of ask about or talk about was music, because
Yeah.
I I think I might have saw it in your stories, and then I ended up on I use Amazon Music, so I was like, okay, let me go, seek this song out, and it's actually on my favorites list. It comes up, through my rotation of however many songs I have. It was like, like 75 songs I had, like, kind of just cycled through. Every so often though, when it comes up, I have to like remind myself, like, what is this? And I'm like, it's like, oh, okay, yeah. Now I'm in. I get it. So, uh, musically, because I mean, again, you're doing a lot of stuff. You just got, you everything in one bag. But when it comes to music, has that always been like just since you're a little kid, just always singing, always had an ear for music, or did it just come about like later on? You're like, you know what? I guess I'm gonna try this now too.
Yeah, so I grew up with a brother who is a professional opera singer. He went to Fredonia for like music, and my family always just like we were very like musical family. Not everyone was like super musically talented, but my brother definitely was, and I looked up to my brother a lot. He played hockey, and then I also played hockey. Like I just wanted to be my brother, you know. Um, and ever since I was really young, I had two outlets. One was music, and one was fighting or like some sort of martial art. And so I had like the physical realm, I had the emotional realm, and that's like sort of how I just healed myself. Um, and people who know me very closely know that like growing up, I was bullied really bad in school. Like I switched schools in second grade, and from second grade until the time I graduated, like I had dealt with the same group of really mean people. And so I didn't enjoy my childhood. It was really painful. And it just sort of like became an outlet, both things for me, both martial arts and writing music, became an outlet for me. And it was really the only way that I was able to like process things, especially at a young age, because I wasn't, when I had started writing music, I wasn't old enough to like fully comprehend how to like be introspective and process emotions or like talk to my therapist, you know. So the closest thing that I could do was just like move my body and like make things that sounded cool or like sounded good to my heart, you know. And so obviously the older that I got, it was something that I just kept doing, and I just kept going through more life things. And so for every single hard life thing that I went through, like there was a song or an album. um, and I have a lot of music that's written that like I probably will never put out or like just still hasn't been recorded. I've written probably like 250 songs, and there's only like a small portion of those out. But like that is my like I don't. I mean, I do journal sometimes, but like instead of journaling or instead of like talking to friends, like I just sit down and I write a song, and then I feel better. And I joke about it with one of my best friends because I'm like, you know what? If you do me wrong and I write a full song about it, I feel no ways about it anymore. You know, like once the song's written, good luck coming back because I that's how I processed, closed the chapter, and moved on. And so really, it's just like an emotional outlet for me, and that and jujitsu, martial arts in general, is like still to this day how I continue to process all of my emotions. And it's funny because I do like the really gritty stuff, and I'm like, I'm a fighter, and I'm like an architect, and I run all the men, and like I do all this STEM stuff, and like, and then I have this very soft side where I just like write really sad music. That's just how it comes out, you know. Um, yeah, and I don't really even care if people listen to it. It's mostly for me, you know. Like if I write a certain song about something that happens, and it's like every time that that feeling pops up or like I think about it, I just listen to the song, and I wrote that song as a way to like mend that part of my heart that is still concerned with that thing. So I'm my own therapist just through my music. So I mostly write it for me to listen to, if I'm being totally honest. But I'm glad that you listen to it.
It's funny because like I think about that, you know, when it comes to me, I don't write anymore. I used to write a lot, again, just to kind of get through things.
Yeah.
Whether it be, I mean, what was it, in middle school, maybe high school? Like I remember listening to Sade, and there was a song, and I couldn't understand what she was saying, so I just started writing my own words.
I made my
And I
own
was like,
song.
yeah, and that's how a lot of my writing went. If I was going through something, if I'm listening to a Mariah Carey song, it's like, I could write something to that tune.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm going through this, and a lot of it, I would always just kind of keep hidden. People knew that I would write, and it was always kind of this weird contrast because like this dude who's out there just like on the football field running into people with this skull, and trying to fight everyone, and then at the end of the day I'm at home writing. like just like writing
Yeah.
ballads. It's like
Yeah.
it's all about balance,
Yeah. Yeah.
But in the thing, the main thing though, like you said, it's for you. It's like it's not so much that you're writing. It's like hey guys, you like this is how I feel. Read this or listen to this. It's like no, it's essentially journaling. I think
Yeah.
for me at one point it was me actually, I would write something and hand it to a girl like, hey, I like you, and then it was like, yeah, that was like that's sweet of you, but I don't feel that way about you. I was like, okay, can I have that back because
Yeah.
I didn't make a copy of that. I need that. you know, I was a really awkward kid. Like just I
Yeah.
would do weird shit, and then I'd go and play sports. And I'm like, okay, maybe he's not so awkward. He's a good athlete. And it's like, no, no, trust me, I'm really fucking weird.
Yeah.
Like I'm a very
Yeah.
odd guy, but
Yeah.
it's life.
Yeah. If I wrote music for other people, it would sound a bit different. Like what I write and the way that it's produced, it's not like your most admired genre, especially like people my age. Like if I was writing my music for other people, it would sound much different. But it doesn't because I write it for me. So I basically tell people like, yeah, I make music. It's for me. But if you want to listen to it and you like it, I'm so glad. Go for it. you know?
I do.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, good. That's
look,
good.
so but I just like music. Period. So it's like, my wife, she'll like there'll be music on, and she's like, what is this? And it's like you haven't even given it a chance, like because like we're old, so like old people like to kind of stick to their ways. It's like what I really liked. I really liked the Gin Blossoms. It's like that's cool. I mean, there's other music now. There's a lot more music
Yeah.
now. It's okay to listen to it. It's like, no, no, no. I like what I like. It's like, okay, that's cool. Well, I like to hear other stuff.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's for people, just kind of a really good outlet. Just whether it's your own music or just listening to someone else's music. And
Yeah.
my daughter, she's getting into that mode now. She's 7, and she's just like right now she listens to I think Disney Zombies, so she's really big into that. But then when it's bedtime, because I don't sing well, the only like bedtime song I sing is Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And like she asked me recently, Dad, do you know any other songs besides Twinkle Twinkle? I was like, well, baby, I know other songs. It's just I know that one very well.
Like
So
I know that one to my core.
but she'll ask me to if she can have a quiet song for bedtime. So that usually means Mariah Carey or Corinne Bailey Ray or something, like a ballad. And I'll put the music on, and now she's singing along to it. And it's just really, really like, okay, so good, good. You're exploring music, and then Spice Girls. She likes
Spicy.
Spice Girls a
Yeah.
lot.
Good. Yeah. Sometimes I get overwhelmed by the amount of things that I do. And it's hard because each of the things that I do in a way is like very healing to my soul. Just they're different pieces of me. Um, but there's not really anything I've chosen that I can do at 80%. My I say this all the time. I'm like, I would probably be so much better at jujitsu if I didn't work 75 hours a week, or if I didn't have 90 million other things going on. And like I think about the professional fighters who they wake up in the morning, they have their first training session, they go home, they take a nap, all their food's meal prepped for them. Then they go back for another training, and then they do the same thing again, and they go to their recovery lounge or whatever. And it's like, yeah, I'd probably be performing way better too if I got more than 6 hours of sleep and didn't have 75 hours of work to cram. Um, but also, like, it's hard because I want to have all of my outlets. Like, I am so good at the things that I do, especially like professionally as an architect. Um, I don't know, like I love doing that. It's amazing, and I don't think I could ever like sacrifice one or the other, which is why I'm like, no, I can make this work. Like I could do both things. I could be a competitive athlete and have a full time job and sometimes it just gets really overwhelming, and I definitely stack my schedule really full, and it requires me to be incredibly organized. And sometimes I just like, I burn out. I do. I'm not gonna lie. I get tired. My training slacks because I'm so tired from other life things. But I think if I didn't have one or the other, I'd probably lose my mind, and I definitely wouldn't be as like, I wouldn't have the head on my shoulders that I do. Professionally, I'm taught how to like keep my composure, and athletically and competitively, I am taught how to like utilize the composure, if that makes sense. Like knowing how to keep your composure and knowing what to do with your composures are two very different things. Um,
Mhm.
and so I don't necessarily want to sacrifice one or the other, but I do sometimes think about like how much better of an athlete would I be if I wasn't so involved in everything else.
What led you to architecture?
So ever since I was like 13, I was just like build stuff. And when I was 13, I was like, Mom, I'm going to be an architect. Right. Because at the time, being a professional fighter, like wasn't on the table. It was never on the table for me. My mom actually like hates that I do this stuff. But I was really young. I was really smart. And then I was like, I'm going to architecture school. And so off I went. I did a 5-year undergrad. I just graduated in May with my bachelor's, which is like, it's a 5-year accreditation. And then somehow I got roped back into my master's. So now I start grad school again in August. So now I'll be working full time with grad school, with competitive fighting. I'm a little nervous, but I've also kind of been doing that for like the last 3 years. So yeah, on top of working full time, also stack on the school thing. I've been doing that too for 5 years. And architecture is hard. It's not like a show up to your lectures and just like whatever. It's very time consuming. But I also am trying to project like where I'd like to go with my future. And now that things are a little bit more realistic for me, like fighting wise and professionally, I think it's important that I establish like a good professional career that I can always fall back onto when I have to retire from competitive fighting. Even if there's no money ever involved in competitive fighting, I still need to have something to fall back onto after I'm done competing. And I would love that to be a gym. I would love to open my own gym at some point, whether it's, in the next 5 years or 10 years or whatever I want it to be. Um, but at the same time, I need to be able to afford my other hobbies and passions, and architecture has been a way to do that. And I've been fortunate enough to like be disgustingly overeducated and very good at what I do. And it is the reason why I'm able to travel to compete, or why I'm able to, go to seminars or whatever it is. And it's important to have the fallback, because really what happens when your body can no longer fight or compete or run your gym or whatever it is, like what are you going to do with your life? And so I have found something that I'm also passionate about that luckily like brings in good money. But it's like, how do I balance and put one thing, like, do I for the time being put more priority on jujitsu because I'm only going to be young one time, or do I stay here because it's set me on a really great path professionally? So that's kind of my struggle right now, is like my life choices and like where do I want to go with my life. But also I know that if I want to open a gym, I'm going to be able to need to afford it. So, and I like nice things, so I want to afford those things too. So yeah.
I mean, like you said, you've been doing it for the last 3 years, kind of this juggling act. So,
Yeah.
business as usual. And congrats on, graduation.
Oh, thanks.
And, so, it's a big accomplishment, So, and just with all the stuff that you do, especially. So good for you. Good.
Yeah,
Um,
my daily schedule is it's the same every single day. I'm a big routine person. Like I like my routine. I do the same thing every day. I'm usually up at like 7. I start working at 7:30. I get done at 5. Sometimes I have to like dabble for an hour and do like internship work or whatever. And then I train from like 6 to 8:30, and I come home, I shower, have dinner, catch up on emails, whatever, go to sleep, and then I do it all again the next day. Like every day is pretty much the same, but I kind of like it because I know what to expect, and it keeps me on a good path.
Oh, good. I mean, I think that's the important thing. It works for you. You like it. You know what to expect. So, you know, it only becomes a problem when you say, you know what, this isn't cool.
Yeah,
Like I don't like this. It's Groundhog's Day.
yeah,
So
yeah. I do feel like I missed out on a little bit of like my college years or like my social time that I could have had. I never really dabbled in like the parties or the drinking or any of that stuff. But at the
it's
same time,
overrated.
it is overrated, and I think the older that I get, the more I'm like thankful that I had jujitsu to keep me out of that stuff. Like, I I had a very like strict regimented schedule during those college years because in order to be successful at both my professional career and my fighting career, I had to be like I had to adopt a very specific lifestyle, and I would deal with a lot of stuff from my friends. And I'm like, you're so lame. Like, you never go out with us or like come out. And I'm like, I have been. If I want to be a world champion, I'm not going to go out to the bar. Or like if I want to network with people that are going to progress my career, I'm not going to find them at the bar, you know.
True.
Um
Very true.
so it just became like a sacrifices. I made a lot of sacrifices, and a lot of people, my friends and other people my age, like look at me and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you do so much!" And like, "You've already done X, Y, and Z. You're only 22." And I'm like, "Well, while you were having fun, I was in pain." So, I don't really feel bad, but yeah, I'm a very like, if you want it, go get it kind of person.
Good. Good. I think that's a very um admirable, just kind of trait to have. And I wish that I were more, especially back in my 20s. I think in my 20s I was definitely the one who's like, hey man, come out and party. All right, I guess. like like
Right.
why not? Sure. Like my one friend, she had said to me, we were talking about it a few years back, and I was like, man, I was working full time, going to school full time, and partying full time. She's like, how did you do it? And I was like, I didn't. That's the problem. Like something had to lose.
Something
And
had to give.
it's like, and those keg parties were a lot of fun, and I didn't. That the keg parties didn't lose; they made me lose. So, you know, the you know, all the social and partying, it's cool, but you've got yourself in a position where you're like, look, I'm moving in the right direction. You're backloading life instead
Yeah.
of front loading. So good for you.
Yeah, it's the three-tiered system of like energy, what is it? Time, efficiency, or money, right? Something's got to give. You can't
Yeah.
have time and efficiency with money. You can't have money and efficiency with time. Like, so everything that you do, like, you got to prioritize. It's the prioritization, the organization. I tell this to people all the time. I have friends that like barely do anything, and they're like, I don't have time. And I'm like, that's a load of shit. You do have time. You just organize it poorly. You just have poor time management. We have the same amount of hours in every single week, and I do what I need to do in my hours, and you do what you need to do in your hours. Don't look at me and judge my hours and how I use them if you're not going to make maximum capacity of how you use your hours, Like, mind
I
your hours.
I had a buddy, his wife, she asked me one day, we're, just sitting around talking. I think she was doing like kind of an Instagram, I guess IGTV at the
Mm-hmm.
time. And I was, promoting it on BJJ Wiki.
Yep.
And, because it's like, well, look, I'll promote it. I can't guarantee that it's going to pick up anything because, the people follow my account is a whole different group of people than what you're given. And as we're sitting there talking, she goes, like, how do you find time to do the stuff that you do? Because you're working, you're being a dad, you're doing multiple podcasts, you're training jujitsu, and you're running like a bunch of like Instagram accounts. And it's like, so it's like, I mean, there, I find the time. I mean, I make the time. It's not like when I'm doing a podcast, I'm spending, a full day on it.
Yeah.
Like we're recording here. I have one that I'm going to edit after this, and that's about an hour. Cool, and I can make that happen probably later at night. Meanwhile, I'm gonna after we get done here, I'll prep stuff for that for later. But I'm gonna go to Dave and Buster's with my daughter.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna go play video games like
Yeah.
real quick, and you prioritize the things that matter most. And
Yeah.
for me, it's my wife and my daughter. So we're gonna go have fun, and then after that, come back, and I might sit down and watch, I don't know, Bluey with my daughter. I
Yeah.
don't want to watch Bluey, but she does, and it's like, let's go, let's do it. And while that's happening, you can kind of multitask off of that. All right, we're watching Bluey, I'm kind of paying attention, but now let me go check these messages. Let's see
Yeah.
here, I can start setting up
Yeah.
other guests. There's always ways to kind of finagle things. It's not so much like, I think people from the outside, they look at it like if you do something, you have to like do it straightforward, like it has to be done this way. It's like, no, you can do tons of things. I mean, like right now, I'm pretty sure they're training at the gym right now. I am not, and that's fine because there are other days that I can go train, and work for me is Monday through Friday. So it's like everything fits into its place for everyone, however need it to work.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. Well, Sav, thank you for doing this. I'm gonna go ahead
Thank
and wrap
you.
up and get you into the rest of your day. So before we get out of here, do you have any shout outs or mentions that you would like to drop for us?
Um, I already name dropped April and G and Bone. But that's my shout out. All my teammates and training partners, and also Hyperfly because they sponsor me, which I totally forgot to talk about. But that was like a crazy opportunity that popped up out of nowhere, and I was just like so happy about it.
Good.
Yeah, but other than that, that's really all I got.
All right. Well, we appreciate you sharing your time with us and sharing your story. I would definitely love to have you back on if you be fine with coming back on, because
Anytime.
there's so much more to talk about.
I know. I know. I could literally just like sit and talk forever, but yeah.
At some point, my daughter would come down. I was like, "Hey, so Dad, like,
Hey, so
like,
can
what are
we
you
have some
doing?"
food? Are you gonna have lunch?
Yeah, it's like you want to eat, like you like food, don't you? Look at you. You definitely like food.
Dad, you've been down here 9 hours. Are you okay?
That has happened, and she has come down to check on me. She'll come down with like snacks, like little fruit snacks and stuff. Like here, then she'll save there for me. Then she'll open them and eat like 8 of them. Like, you can have those other 3. Um, gotta love it. So, as always, from everyone else, thank you. We do appreciate your support and your ears, because you guys listen, and I like it. Thank you for doing all that. If you have any questions, concerns, criticisms, always feel free to reach out to me. You can find me at bjj.wiki on Instagram, or Off the Mats Podcast on Instagram. um, you can email me. I probably will think you're a scammer, so just message me on Instagram. That's just probably the safest bet, because someone emailed me and I was scared, and then I replied like weeks later, and it turned out to be legit. So just message me on Instagram. And I mean, there's scammers there too, but I know the routine there. So I want to give a big shout out, as always, to my fellas over there at Nerd Rage Radio: Bobby, Chris, Joe, Marilyn, Phil, Ricky Ticky, Raul, Chucky O, all you cats, Casey, Baltimore Brandon, the Rim Collectors, all you guys, fucking awesome. Love you guys. If it wasn't for Nerd Rage Radio, I wouldn't be doing podcasting. It's a fact. And go check out episode 407. I'm on there. I haven't been on in a while, so I'm back. Actually, I'm lying. I was on 399, 400, 401, and 407. So my bad. Just go listen to those. You get tons of Dante. Also, want to give a shout out to my other podcast, So You Like Horror. If you're into scary movies, go check that out. We are talking about horror movies through the decades. We just reviewed a movie called Killer Kites. by Paul Dale. It's a indie movie, and it's a lot of fun. It's a fun romp, and then we're going to be doing horror by the decade still. We're going to be talking about the 1980s upcoming as well. So that's a big decade because I think most of the listeners kind of connect and relate to a lot of the films from that period because of all the icons: Freddy, Jason, Chucky, Candyman, all that jazz. So it's upcoming. Go check it out. You can find it on Instagram as well. So you like horror, all the words separated by underscores, and go listen to my podcast, dude. Please. Um, and also, last shout out here goes to my guest here, Sav Wright. Thank you, and uh, go give a follow on Instagram to her as well, and check out all the you know cool activities and just adventures that she gets into. So, um, you know, and also here you heard the story here. So now that you've heard the story, go follow the story. Go be a fan. Quit being quit being cheapskates with your Instagram follows. Oh yeah, and, yo, go do a review. Y'all ain't left me a review in a while on Apple Podcasts. It's been a minute, so go leave a review. I'll read your joints on air if y'all leave me a review. And also, word of mouth. Tell a friend to tell a friend. You know, get my podcast listened to more. I don't make money off this, so not like I'm like, hey, get some more ears so I can make some money. But it's just go fucking listen to the podcast, all right? And you know me, I'm a nice guy. You guys keep listening. I'm gonna keep making these shows. Thank you, everyone, and bye.
They were with it. Now let me sing a song.